Andrea Leadsom.
Mr. Speaker, according to the Bank of International Settlements, the amount of global derivatives outstanding is now 1.14 quadrillion US dollars. That's over $1,000 trillion, and it's more than 10 times the GDP of the entire world. It's a vast risk, and not only that, but it's largely unregulated and traded between the banks themselves. I'm grateful for the opportunity to give my maiden speech today during this crucial budget debate. There's no doubt that the actions we take now to cut our deficit and to make our banking system safer will determine how quickly our economy recovers. But in speaking today, I'm following in the big footsteps of my predecessor, Tim Boswell. He made his own maiden speech during the finance bill in 1987, and I'm just hoping that I'm not tempting fate, because within a few months of his speech, the stock market spectacularly crashed. But it's a great pleasure to pay tribute to Tim's 23 years of service in this House. Tim is one of a small number of politicians to have been called a saint by the Daily Telegraph, and he has certainly been an honourable member in this House. But as well as his many virtues, he also has a wicked sense of humour. He emailed me quite recently to tell me that he was never going to vote for me again, ever. And it took a few minutes of sheer panic to realise that this was his way of giving me his great news of his elevation to the other place. Now, Tim has many friends on all sides of the House, and I'm sure that many will want to join me in congratulating him on his well-deserved new role. South Northamptonshire is a new constituency, being 2/3 from Tim Boswell's Daventry and 1/3 from Northampton South.
Thank you.
It's my family have worked and farmed there for generations, and it's a wonderful place in the heart of England. We have a mixture of ancient villages, we have the market towns of Brackley and Towcester, we have thriving new communities on the outskirts of Northampton, and of course we have the world-famous Silverstone Circuit. Engineering and technology businesses are a great strength, and we also have some big local employers like Barclaycard and Carlsberg. But we do have our own challenges. Under the last government, Northamptonshire was a huge target for housing growth, with little regard for the needs and desires of existing long-standing communities. And I'm very glad that my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, has announced his plans to scrap the regional spatial strategies and give power back to local people. We've been beset with applications for wind turbines on the edge of villages where local residents have felt unable to defend their own environment. And more recently, we have whole communities under threat from Labour's preferred route for high-speed rail. It would literally cut through farms and villages in my constituency, in places on a 6-metre high embankment. Now, we all know you can't build new infrastructure painlessly, but there is a huge price to pay for people whose homes and businesses are destroyed by the track. And I would urge our government to make sure that the consultation on high-speed rail gives everybody whose life and whose business is affected the opportunity to have their voice heard. South Northamptonshire is a gem of a place to live, to work and to visit, and I'm hugely honoured to be its first Member of Parliament. But turning back to the subject of the debate, Mr. Speaker, to me it is absolutely key that we must restore the health of our financial services sector as a critical part of restoring our broken economy. And I think there's two ways that we can do that. And I'm really glad, firstly, that my right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, has already decided to give back extra responsibility to the Bank of England. In 1995, Barings Bank collapsed due to rogue trading in the Far East. Nick Leeson had found a way to put on massive uncovered derivatives exposure without the knowledge of Barings Treasury in London, in a different time zone, if not on a different planet. At the time, I was managing the investment banks team of Barclays, and we were the principal banker to Barings. When the collapse came, it was a Friday evening, and the markets were threatening chaos. But Eddie George, who was then Governor of the Bank of England, called together a small group of bankers, including myself, and we worked over the weekend to calm the fears of banks who were exposed to Barings. The direct result of that was that on the Monday morning, there was no run on the banks, Barings was allowed to fail, and there was no systemic contagion. The difference between that and the more recent experience of Northern Rock is the difference between accountability and the tripartite system. In 1995, Eddie George knew it was down to him to prevent a run on the banks. In the case of Northern Rock, we had the FSA looking to the Bank of England, looking to the Treasury for action. And the result was the first run on a bank in 150 years and a foretaste of the financial meltdown that was to come. So from my own experience, Mr. Speaker, I'm positive that a key to restoring the health of our financial sector is giving back powers and accountability to the Bank of England, and I'm delighted that my right honourable friend the Chancellor plans to do just that. But I think there's also a second key action that we need to take, and that is that I believe the financial crisis wasn't just a failure of regulation. It was a failure of competition. The great Adam Smith, in his wealth creation ideas, always said, for markets to be free, to create new wealth, you have to have free entry and free exit of market players. But in the world of finance, those principles haven't been true for years. Cost and complexity have created huge barriers to new entry. We've already seen that governments can't possibly allow a single bank to fail when there are issues of systemic contagion. And we also see every day the distortion of free competition in the power of investment banks to charge huge margins for things like derivatives trading and underwriting. So, Mr. Speaker, I and many of my ex-City colleagues would argue that a key way to make our banking system safer is by measures to change the culture of our financial sector. Those banks, supposedly too big to fail, must be broken up. Barriers to entry must be removed, and the ability to charge monopoly prices must be taken away. In South Northamptonshire, businesses are struggling because of the lack of available working capital. Yet, with our high-tech and engineering expertise, we should be really well placed to build new jobs in the low-carbon economy that our government wants to create. And this government is quite right to want to promote a broader mix of business in our economy. That mix must contain a successful financial services sector with healthy competition and the free availability of working capital. It's a mix that will be at the core of our economic recovery. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Stuart Posey.